Yesterday on this program, we talked about the first House Select Committee hearing on the events of January the 6th, which came it lasted about 3.5 hours and came just days after Nancy Pelosi rejected two of the House Minority Leader's 5 picks. As I mentioned earlier, ahead of the hearing yesterday, Republican leaders held a press conference highlighting the partisan nature of the investigation and the Speaker's efforts to direct the narrative in order to draw attention away from the failures of top-level leadership. With me now to talk more about this is House Republican Whip Steve Scalise. He represents the 1st Congressional District of Louisiana. Steve, welcome back to the program.
Hey, it's always great to be back with you, Tony.
All right, Steve, so what are your thoughts on yesterday's hearing? Is it just what you thought it would be?
Well, Speaker Pelosi made it clear for weeks that she doesn't really want to be focused on just getting the truth out. She wants to get her narrative out because she denied not only members that we were going to put on the committee, Jim Jordan and Jim Banks. And Jim Jordan, by the way, was asking some very specific, tough questions weeks leading up to this hearing, asking questions like, what did Speaker Pelosi know? There are reports out there that she was given intelligence weeks before January 6th that the National Guard should be there at the Capitol and that she turned it down. There were reports out that she was given a note the morning of January 6th that they need the National Guard and that she turned it down. Jim was going to be raising these questions, and then Speaker Pelosi kicked him off the committee before it even started because she doesn't want those questions asked. There were the head of Capitol Police Union, the head of the police union wanted to come and testify about some of the things that they knew that they were trying to get for tools for Capitol Police to be better prepared, that they were not given. And Speaker Pelosi would not let him testify. So clearly she doesn't want the truth. She wants her own narrative, one side of whatever she wants to talk about. And as you said earlier, too, she does not want to be talking about the real radical socialist things they're doing today, last week, next week, to raise taxes, to kill jobs, to increase inflation that we're seeing all across the country, the border crisis, which is now becoming, by the way, a super spreader event of a new variant, the Lambda variant that's coming from Peru up through our southern border because President Biden's got the border wide open. All of this is going on. They don't want to talk about it. And that's a lot of what this has to do with why she kept some of our members off the committee who were going to be asking those tough questions.
As I read through some of the statements that were made yesterday, to me, it looks just like political theater, which would be consistent with what Nancy Pelosi has done really since the election. In fact, since retaking the gavel as Speaker. You made a point yesterday in the press conference, and it's one thing that the media is really not talking about, the fact that there's already been a bipartisan investigation into this in the United States Senate. It was both parties, Republican and Democrat. They made recommendations. They pointed out the failures. Why is no one paying attention to that? Why does there need to be what appears to be a very partisan investigation in the House?
Right. And Tony, this is an important point because, look, the Justice Department is investigating this. FBI is investigating. They've made arrests all across the country. Every person that's been identified to be in the Capitol illegally has already been arrested. And then there are other investigations. The Senate did a bipartisan investigation, an actual bipartisan investigation. And then here comes Speaker Pelosi making it hyper-partisan, and then going one step further, not just kicking off Jim Jordan, not just kicking off Jim Banks, but making it clear that any questions related to the Speaker's duties, what did Speaker Pelosi know? Did she or didn't she turn down National Guard help weeks in advance? That is now not even allowed to be part of the discussion because she controls the whole committee. And she kicked off people who were going to be asking those questions. That totally takes away any credibility that this committee had. It shows that it's about her promoting her agenda. And that's a shame because the Capitol Police deserve better. Everybody who cares about the United States Capitol and wants to get to the facts deserve better than this.
Hey, Congressman Steve Scalise, we probably didn't bring this point out. We talked about it, but under the structure of the Congress, the Speaker has ultimate authority of what happens there on the grounds, and so the buck stops with her.
Yeah, she fired the sergeant at arms that day. You know, we wanted, by the way, to talk to the sergeant at arms. You can't talk to the sergeant at arms. But ultimately, one of my colleagues on the Republican side, Rodney Davis, who was going to be on that committee, and obviously he wasn't even able to be there. Rodney Davis last year had proposed reforms to the Capitol Police Board, the board that governs Capitol Police, to make it less political. Why should a Speaker of the House be the one to determine whether or not the Capitol Police have the tools they need to be safe? If it was recommended to Speaker Pelosi that they have backup, whether it's National Guard, whether it's more hardware, why should the Speaker of the House be saying no? And by the way, this is the same Speaker of the House who last summer was embracing the defund police movement. So look at the record of a lot of the people, by the way, on that committee. Many of them embraced the defund the police movement. That helped lead to this. They don't want to talk about what happened during the summer when cops all around the country were being murdered, cities were being burned down, civilians were being beaten in the streets by a lot of these gangs and thugs that were never arrested. No arrests were made there. And they don't want to have any discussion about that. And some of those same people, including Kamala Harris, who were raising bail money for the people who were burning down some of these cities, are now acting like they've reversed course. They've never denounced the defund the police movement.
Steve, I know you've got to go, but very quickly, talking about political theater, I know Nancy Pelosi making the announcement masks are back in the Capitol because of the CDC statement yesterday. This, I would assume, is going to extend the proxy voting, which has allowed members not to even come to Congress to vote, wherever they are in the world, and has allowed her to maintain control over a very slim majority, with a very slim majority in Congress.
Yeah, this is a lot about politics, and unfortunately, the politicization of the CDC. I think you saw that the New York Times today wrote an opinion piece blasting the CDC for giving so many mixed messages and promoting a vaccine hesitancy by saying one day, get the vaccine, it'll help you, allow you to do the things you did, and you don't have to wear masks. And then yesterday, without any real notice, yesterday morning, DC was not considered a hotspot. They changed the criteria and named it a hotspot so that Speaker Pelosi could immediately institute a new mask mandate. They kept proxy voting going. With the special election we had in Texas last night, where Republicans won another special election seat, Pelosi right now until November only has a 3-seat majority. That's how close the majority is right now. And with proxy voting, she's able to control all of her members and get all of her votes in. And I think a lot of this has to do with controlling that, trying to keep people shut down. We don't need another shutdown. We don't need schools shut down. People should be able to live their life. This is about government control, and that's why we're trying to fire Speaker Pelosi.
If it were not, then in good faith, she should say, we're going to do away with proxy voting. Everyone would have to live by her authoritarian rule, even her own party. But she is using this as cover for clamping down and putting in place for the first time ever these types of rules in the House. And I think the American people are seeing it, and I appreciate you speaking out.
And by the way,
it.
They had no problem with those Democrats coming over from Texas, avoiding their job in Texas, spreading COVID all throughout the White House, the Speaker's office. They don't even want to talk about that. It's those Democrats that are spreading it, and yet they want to take away our rights right now.
Yeah. Steve Scalise, thanks for joining us today. Always great to see you.
Great being with you, Tony. Thanks.
All right.